The final unit and the final chapter is on investor protections. Protections that investors have in different ways that they can, maybe not necessarily with legal protections, but certain trading protections they might have as well. The Security Investor Protection Corporation, SIPC, came about from SIPA, the Security Investor Protection Act. SIPC is a private corporation. It is for fraudulent loss of money in the securities account. It's an insurance. All member firms must contribute to SIPC. For if something happens, then when they've contributed to SIPC, SIPC has the money to cover the investors should something go wrong with the account due to fraud, bankruptcy, things like that. The limit is $500,000, of which $250,000 can be in cash. This is per separate customer, husband, wife, and a joint account. If I have an account and my wife has an account and we have a joint account together, that is 3 separate accounts. If I have an UGMA and I'm a custodian for my child, that's another account. They're each separate account per institution. But there's unlimited protection for all securities registered in the client's name. When we're talking about how securities are registered, we talked about they could be directly in the client's name or they could be registered in street name. SIPC is designed for protection of securities registered in street name. If the securities are registered in the name of the client, the broker-dealer is never in a position to take them, even during bankruptcy. So SIPC is never going to be needed if the securities are never actually at risk of being taken or being stolen, seized for liquidation. In the movie The Big Short, near the end of it, Steve Carell's character, who wants to just strangle the banks, that guy works for a hedge fund. It's a different situation, but it sort of reminded me of this. Because for as long as the economy is going well, it looked like he was a totally separate institution. Totally separate from, was it Morgan Stanley or I forget which broker he was working with. But as soon as that broker started going through serious liquidity problems, as happened to most of them in 2008, they started seizing everything they could, including his hedge fund. So they forced him to sell and basically bail them out. Whereas with securities registered in street name, the broker-dealer could seize those. They are technically registered to the broker-dealer in care of the client. They are technically assets of the broker-dealer. They could theoretically seize them during liquidation and during bankruptcy, and that's a problem. But that's what SIPC is for. This applies to securities the investor 100% owns or are in a cash account. Cash account is any account where the securities are 100% owned, paid in cash. If you see a SIPC question and it talks about a certain amount of money in a cash account, if they don't specify that it is actually in cash, assume that means it's in securities. I've had students misunderstand that. And although technically it can cover margin accounts, the margin account has to be 100% owned. It can't have stuff, it can't have loans out. It can't be using margin. And why would you own 100% of assets in a margin account? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me why you would put them in a margin account, not just a cash account. But theoretically, if the assets are 100% owned in the margin account, those are also going to have SIPC protection. Here's the sort of summary picture. The rules up to $500,000 in total protection per account, with the maximum coverage of $250,000 in cash. It does not include commodity futures or similar. Very rarely includes margin, and only when 100% fully owned. The cash account refers to an account that is 100% owned. It does not mean that all the money is in cash, simply that it is 100% owned. The per account refers to the registration. Individual and joint are different. Husband, wife, and husband and wife joint account are 3 separate accounts. Now, if we look at the example, the client has a cash account. They have $200,000 in securities and $300,000 in cash. Their spouse has a cash account with $300,000 in securities and $200,000 in cash. So they have a total of $1 million between them. Is all $1 million protected? Because what we want to look at is if we look at his cash or her cash in this case, the client, well, only $250,000 of this is protected. Well, all 200 of this is going to then be protected, so client has a total of 450,000 in protection, 200,000 in securities, and only $250,000 in cash, because that's the limit. So that's 450,000 the client has in protection. The spouse is fully covered. The spouse has 500,000 in the account, no more than 250s in cash. All 500 is covered. So you add the 450 from the client, the 500 from their spouse, and combined they would have 950,000 in protection, not the full million. The FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. This is insurance on bank accounts. These are guaranteed not to lose money, not securities. I've said sometimes that SIPC and FDIC are similar in that they're designed to prevent fraud. They're designed as insurance against fraud. The difference is if I put my money in a bank account and anything goes missing, well, the only way that happens is fraud. That's what FDIC, if any amount that goes down, FDIC is there. But with securities go up and down. Just because it went down doesn't mean there's fraud. Now, if it was during a liquidation and the broker-dealer seized their assets, that's different. But that's where they sort of are different in that aspect. FDIC is not securities. These are bank products. Any bank that has securities on premises must have them in a separate location. They must also notify customers that securities are not FDIC covered. We need to make sure we don't let anyone think that securities have FDIC coverage. They have SIPC coverage. You can lose money with securities. Absolutely. When we talk about a bank with securities, go into a big bank and you can sort of see how this works. Go up to the tellers. In my bank, when I walk in, there are tellers over here. They're sitting and they've got these, not podiums, but sort of a walled area where they're behind it and they've got the cash, and I go up and I deposit cash. They put it in my checking account. But if you go and ask them if you can open a Roth IRA, they're going to explain to you, no, I'm sorry, we can't. We're a bank. We can't help you with securities. But if you walk over there across the 10 feet, 15 feet where all the desks are, so as you walk in, you'll see like glass over here, but there's desks over here. Those aren't tellers. That's a registered rep. Those are broker-dealers. Separate location in the property. And as you walk over to them, you're going to see signs that specifically talk about securities are not FDIC covered. They can lose money. There are no guarantees. Types of orders are ways clients can protect themselves. I have additional material on these below, so make sure that you do review them as well. But a market order is an order to buy or sell at the next available market. It doesn't matter the price, you just want to buy it, you're putting in a market order. Most orders that we think about, we generally describe as market orders. But we could have a limit order. This is an order to buy or sell. Remember, this isn't saying a buy or sell, it's just an order. You could have a market buy or market sell, limit buy, limit sell. But it's at a given price or better. Will never be bought or sold at a price that is worse than the limit price. But even if the market price does in fact hit that or even go through the limit price, because it could go back up, the way these orders work, when you put your order in, it goes to the bottom of the list. It's first come, first serve. There are people who placed orders in ahead of you. Their orders are going to get placed first, which may be adjusting the market as it goes. So even if the market price hits the limit price, that doesn't mean it's going to actually sell. Your order has to be on top, and they have to be able to place your order at a price that is at least what you say or better. Now, if I'm trying to buy, and I set a limit of buy at 50, well, I'm trying to buy at 50. What's a better price than 50? 51? Wait, no. If I want to buy at 50, I don't want to buy at 51. If I want to buy it no worse than 50, well, maybe I'll buy at 49 or 48 or 47. A limit buy is going to trigger the price below the strike price, the trigger price here. Whereas a limit sell, if I want to sell at 50, am I willing to take 49? Would I take 51? Yeah, I'll take numbers higher. So make sure when you're thinking about limit, you're not necessarily thinking about the higher or lower kind of thing. You're thinking at a price that can't be worse. A price at that limit price or better. Stop is in order to buy or sell once a given price has been reached. Once it's hit, once that price is hit, the order triggers and it becomes a market order filled at the next available price. I don't know what's happening with the stock, but if it hits this price, yeah, then I'm interested in buying, or then I'm interested in selling it. In many cases, stop orders are referred to as stop loss orders. The idea is I'm going to use a sell stop to stop a loss. Well, how would I stop a loss? Is I'm worried it's going to go below this price. If I'm selling it, I bought it at 20. It's now trading at 60. I don't want to go much below 50. I want to make sure that if it goes below 50, I just stop the loss. I've already guaranteed a gain, but if it keeps going, I don't want to do that. Buying a stop buys. Unfortunately, for some of these, half of these orders are only on the short side, so it's a little harder for us to visualize them if we're not familiar and understand intrinsically how short selling and how that works. But the idea with the stop here, a buy stop, I'm worried the price is going to keep going up. I sold short at 100, now it's at 50, so I do a buy stop at 60. If it goes above 60, if it starts going up again, I want to stop the loss. So I'm going to buy because I owe someone the security. I'm going to buy it at 60 or a price around there. But the stop price doesn't tell you what the actual price that you're going to be paying is. It's simply when the stop price is hit, then it becomes a market order. Price could go up or down dramatically before your order gets to the top. But once it triggers, it will absolutely sell. The limit order could go down, could cross the trigger price and still never order, still never process. Of a stop order, if it hits that stop price or goes through it, it will eventually place absolutely, even if the stock price goes back above the other direction. But there's another type, because the stop order becomes a market order. There's a type that becomes a limit order. These are called a stop limit order. I have more written below. I have been spending some time trying to figure out exactly how these work. These appear to me to be a rather complicated way of basically saying, I want to buy it within this price range. I want to buy it between $10 and $10.20. I don't want to pay more than $10.20. I don't want to buy it for less than 10 because I'm worried if it goes below 10, it's just going to keep going. I want it to be slightly above 10 because I think it could keep going, or I want to sell it between these two prices. That's basically what a stop limit order is used for. And as I said, read some of the posts below about that. I do have a link on there from a day trader who posted how they only use stop limit orders. So it's nothing we're going to really deal with. What you need to know about a stop limit order, though, is it's basically two. It's got a stop price. Once that price is hit, whether the stock goes through it or just stays and bounces off, doesn't matter. Once the market hits that price, it will then become a limit order at the limit price, not a market order. To understand how these are placed, we want to make sure that we remember slabs and bliss. The sell limits and buy stops are always placed at prices above the current market value. The buy limits and sell stops are always placed at a price below, inferior to the current market price. Good till canceled. These are other types of orders. This is an order that will not expire. Other types of orders might be a day order where it expires in a day. Many orders I think expire in a year, some in 6 months. Good till canceled is it will not expire until it is actually filled, or I specifically call and cancel it. Could be discretionary or non-discretionary order. If any of the 3 A's are missing, the action, the asset, or the amount, it must be in a discretionary account where the rep has discretionary authority. They could be a solicited order. This is where the client buys a security that the rep recommended to them, that the rep solicited for them. Or it could be an unsolicited order. That is where the client calls and specifically requests the security for the rep to go and buy. The rep did not recommend, the rep did not in any way hint, the rep didn't say, well, I can't actually suggest you buy this, but if you ask me for it, I can sell it. None of that. As long as it's totally originated from the client's mind, then it is an unsolicited order. That brings us to the end of the last unit in the last chapter. Make sure you keep reviewing this. Make sure you keep asking questions. Please email me. My email address, if you haven't seen it before, is brian@thesecuritiesguys.guru. I do my best to respond as quickly as possible, normally the same day, if not within 24 hours. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. I am here to help you. I hope you enjoyed this course, and I will see you later.